Before we commence our discussion, let us start first with the prayer that will be led by Princess Martinez.
Let's bow our heads and feel the presence of the Lord. Our Father, we thank you for this day. Guide us all through into this presentation. Amen.
Good day, everyone. We will now continue the discussion in English for specific purposes about testing, evaluation, and classroom practices. The discussants for today's video are Warley Jr. Rachel Perez, Jeremae Sarino, Princess Martinez, and Aeron Pasao. Since we are not meeting in the synchronous discussion, our motivational activity will be presented right away to at least give you an overview for our activity. As you can see on the screen, you need to arrange or organize the letters first before you get the correct word or phrase, or to simply unjumble the jumble. We are supposed to present 5 jumbled words, and it will be guessed and answered by the class through turning on their microphone and saying the magic word first before saying the correct answer. But since it is a recorded discussion, we will just reveal the answers. So, are you ready for the first word?
So this is the first word or item that you will unscrabble. T-I-N-G-S-E-T. Tingset. What comes in your mind when you see these letters or jumbled? The answer is testing.
So for the word number 2, so the answer is, let's reveal. Okay, so scoring.
Okay, now let's proceed to the third word. So let's reveal the answer if you are correct. It's holistic.
For number 4, let us have crack spite. Let's see the correct answer. Practices.
And for the last word is non-triviality. So I guess that's all for our motivational activity, and we can now proceed to our topic discussion about testing and evaluation and also the classroom practices. First is the testing and evaluation, which includes the introduction on testing and evaluation, ESP testing, performance-based testing, IELTS or the International English Language Testing System, the TEEP or also known as the Test in English for Educational Purposes, scoring, and its examples like holistic scoring and analytic scoring. To start with the discussion, let us define first the words testing and evaluation. Testing is the process through which the tool is used. In ESP, it is crucial to do as it indicates or dictates the learning outcome success of the learners. Meanwhile, the planning of ESP testing involves 5 steps, which are identifying the objectives, creating a scenario, providing information, developing the task, and creating the evaluation tool. On the other hand, evaluation is the bigger umbrella from which tests and testings are included. It involves a qualitative judgment of how well a student has performed. Testing is not enough, and the teacher should do the evaluation after the testing. So both testing and evaluation have a relationship with each other. In what way? Testing measures a level of skill or knowledge that has been reached, while evaluation is the process of making judgments based on criteria and evidence. Even if the students have undergone testing, an evaluation should be done to establish whether it is meeting the aims or not. To further elaborate testing in ESP, here is Warley to discuss it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Warley Jr. And today I will be discussing the ESP testing. So what is ESP testing? So there are various types of tests, but in this portion, it only highlights and presents only the most useful and practical test in ESP. So for instance, you are testing the performance of the student regarding of their specific field. For example, if a student is taking a medical, so the examination or the test that will put it on that is only for medical, not with the for another field like ICT, like computer science, integrating questions regarding with that. So it would be a conflict because the subject or the content knowledge that was known only for that learner is only for the medical science. So maybe he or she knew some of the terminologies of the computer science, but not all. So it should be focused only. So that is the the purpose of the ESP testing. Also, there is a specific purpose language test is one in which the test content and test methods are derived from an analysis of a specific language use. So, how is it going around? So, in this situation, the test, task, and content are authentically representative of tasks in a target situation, and then allowing for an interaction between the test taker's language ability. So when we talk about the test taker's language ability, this pertains to the learner's ability, and then to the purposes, to the specific purposes content knowledge. And when we talk about specific content knowledge, this was based on your field content, that specific field content, and then such a test allows to make inferences about believing the language for specific purposes differs from the another. So there are according to Douglas 2000, he proposed two reasons why this is necessary, was purpose to provide in an explanation of about the ESP testing. So one reason of that is the language performance has varied with the context. Test takers' language performance, which is the learners, will vary with both context and test task. Therefore, our interpretation of a test taker's language ability must vary from performance to performance to have or to present a good performance regarding with the test that was be putted. And then the second reason is that specific purpose language is precise technical languages that are used in any academic, professional, or vocational field have specific characteristics that people who work in the field must be controlled. Since you have the content knowledge of your field, you have the control, you have the knowledge, you have the concept of all of that. And also regarding with the ESP testing, this is which is the performance based testing. So this is another topic for the ESP testing. So which is ESP testing, which is performance-based testing. Performance-based testing. So when we talk about performance-based testing, there are many testing procedures that are classified as performance tests with a generally agreed upon assessments procedures that require students to perform a certain task or activity, or perhaps to solve complex problems. So the reason, the purpose of the performance-based testing is to highlight what a student can do or to perform. Since from the word itself, performance-based testing, what a student can do or to perform. For instance, a student wants to develop his or her skill in field of medical, in which through an application which allowing them to perform in a task of a particular skill that they want to develop. And also by that they want to develop that skill, they are they are being stimulated. The stimulation was presented, they being stimulated, like letting them to observe how a patient was being operated, what tools that they are using, and of course what terminologies that they were using when they are speaking in their particular field. After, you will ask them, well, what they have observed, then the ESP teacher will identify and know if they are performing well. And then, of course, under of the ESP testing there are two most widely used ESP tests. These are the International English Language, or the IELTS. It is designed to help you work, study, or migrate to a country where English is a native language. For instance, if you're looking for a work, to live in another country which is have a native language, which is the English language, or you want to study in an English speaking country, then you must be able to demonstrate a high level of English language ability. So this is the purpose, is being able to communicate in the native language of the country you wish to work or study. Has a wide range of benefits. So the IELTS developed to provide a fair and accurate assessment of English language proficiency. So from the word itself, English international English language testing. So it tests your English language in an international. Next is the TEEP, or the TEEP, which is the next most widely used, was is the test in English for educational purposes. From the word itself, English for educational purposes. These are testing your English for educational purposes, in which a test of proficiency in English for academic purposes. It is designed to show whether a student has a level of English is high enough to degree to apply for a high university, where they could able um, to to go in there. So the administration office of that university will decide if you are um, applicable to enter that school based on your English language proficiency. So the tests are including academic text, listening to lectures or to academic discussion, and writing academic topics. So each TEAP contains a reading, listening, and writing section, all on the way of the same given topic.
Scoring. How good is good? How can we say a particular performance or output is acceptable? The answer is by scoring. It is to indicate how well students or learners perform, or how to let them know what is expected of them. How performance is assessed is a crucial topic to consider in an ESP exam. Unlike objective assessments like grammar tests, performance-based examinations like the ones outlined above have several flaws. One of these is raters or graders' tendency for being prejudiced or biased and subjective. Scoring is an efficient tool that allows you to objectively or meaning in a way that is not influenced by personal feelings or opinions that measure students' performance on an assessment activity. As a result of this concern, standardized scoring bands or rubrics were created. Having standardized rubrics can enhance student learning by having consistency in the way teachers score individual performance, as well as keeping consistency between the ways different teachers score the same activities or performance. Standardized rubrics provide students with valuable information about the degree of which a specific learning outcome has been achieved. They provide students with concrete feedback that displays areas of strength and areas in need of improvement. Students can use this feedback as a tool to further develop their abilities. There are two types of scoring that are widely used, namely holistic scoring and analytic scoring.
Good day, everyone. I am Princess Martinez, and I will be discussing holistic scoring. And to begin, let us define the word holistic first. So, when we say holistic, we were pertaining to the concept or idea of the whole, or to the total system instead of its parts. So, in holistic scoring, it is a method of evaluating a structure based on its overall quality. Holistic scoring results in a more general description for categories, but it includes the different elements of writing. So again, holistic scoring focuses on overall quality, proficiency, or understanding of writing content or writing skills. So, holistic scoring may also apply to performance tasks, including role play, debate, and video presentation, while in written works, in particular, research papers. So, usually, holistic scoring may contain words to describe the general points or mark of presentation, For example, holistic scoring can classify highest as equivalent to above average, sufficient as good, developing may have some difficulty, and lastly, needs improvement is equivalent to poor presentation. So, holistic scoring rubric means making an overall grading, and its structure is considering all criteria at the same time. Unlike analytic assessment, it involves assessing different aspects of students' performance, such as mechanics, grammar, style, organization, and voice in student writing. So another example shows that holistic scoring will highlight the learner's ability and skills in presenting rather than what they are lacking. It just indicates whether the presentation did excellently, good or bad. However, it doesn't give specific feedback to what they need or might improve because the tasks were graded as a whole.
Okay, so analytic scoring. So it is a method of how we evaluate the learner's work or performance. So in this way of scoring, it assesses each criteria by individual scoring. So analytic rubric is a detailed of how we rate the student's score. For example, we want to evaluate the narrative report in business field. Using this rubric, we can easily evaluate precisely the narrative report. We can also identify if the learners have strengths and weaknesses in a particular area of components. So this is example of analytic rubric in evaluating the written report. In the first column, horizontally, in this area shows how the student evaluated if their output is below expectation, satisfactory, or exemplary. And in the last column is the score of what they get. The first column also vertically, these are the components of what aspect of how we evaluate the students. Since in this analytic rubric is focused on written output, this rubric main focus is how the texts are organized, the content and style, but we can also include the quality of text. If it has the words that used or terminologies. We can also include the grammar usage and mechanics. In evaluating an oral presentation, it has different components. So in this criteria, we can include how the learners speak, the volume of their voice, is the topic is related, how they use their words. So for example, in the field of medical, the teacher gave a task that the student will having a debate about in specific topic. This rubric will show how the student performed, and also it will show the weaknesses and strength of the student in each component.
Before we proceed to the next topic, here is a quick summary of the discussion. We have to remember that in teaching ESP to the students, there is also testing and evaluation that is involved in the process. Examples of those testing are performance-based testing, IELTS or International English Language Testing System, and TEP or Test in English for Educational Purposes. Let us explain each of them. Performance-based testing measures students' ability to apply the skills and knowledge learned from a unit or units of study. In ESP, performance-based testing can be done through real-life assessments of using and applying the English concepts depending on their field or purpose. Meanwhile, IELTS is an international standardized test of English language proficiency for non-native English language speakers, and TEP is a test of proficiency in English for academic purposes or AEP that is intended to be taken by students whose first language is not English. Lastly, a CSP class involves testing and evaluation. It also involves scoring that is assigning points to different levels of student performance. It has two types, namely holistic and analytic scoring. Analytic rubrics identify and assess components of a finished product, while holistic rubrics assess student work as a whole. This time, after listening to various discussions about testing and evaluation, we will now go on to the classroom practices involving the four key methodological principles, namely reality control, non-triviality, authenticity, and tolerance of error. Recently, ESP education has received more attention as it is different from English for General Purposes or EGP in many aspects. We all know that ESP is different from EGP, as EGP focuses on the general English language abilities of students, whereas ESP focuses on specific skills and needs of learners based on the detailed analysis of learners' professional or academic needs. Supporters like Douglas thought that the main purpose of LSP test is to measure the test specialized takers' language ability. However, their background knowledge is a necessary and inseparable part of their specialized language ability. So, two important things about ESP testing that can be used to tell it apart from EGP testing are how the real tasks are and how language knowledge and content knowledge for specific purposes intact. Authenticity is a big part of how valid a test is, and it has always been a hot topic in the field of language testing. Defining authenticity is important for rating, making tests, taking tests, and using tests, and many more. A big part of figuring out if a test is really is making sure that the tests on it are real. Another big part is making sure that the criteria used to judge how well a test taker did are real.
Four key methodological principles. Is there a specific method that English language teachers use in the ESP classroom? Sinha and Sadora at 1991 brought this up, and the answer is no. This is a question that has plagued language instructors, particularly ESP teachers. ESP courses are focused on communicative language instruction, or teaching CLT, which is the most common technique. For language teachers, a task-based approach, often known as task-based learning, is an option. In a task-based lesson, the instructor does not decide which language will be studied ahead of time. Instead, the session is built around the completion of a primary task, and the language studied is chosen by what happens as the students accomplish it. Here, Phillips, as cited in Robinson 1991, suggests four key methodological principles, namely reality control, non-triviality, authenticity, and tolerance of error. First key methodological principle, letter A, reality control, which relates to the manner in which tasks are rendered accessible to students. According to Jordan 1997, the task difficulty is controlled by using simplification, but of the type used in the subject area. This is a valid and well-made point that tells us that the tasks that we create and execute for the students should be aligned and simplified according to the level and subject area of the learners to be able to be able them to access and grasp the task easily. And according to Bachman 1990, the test or task should be designed to reflect real life situations or reality, in other words, wherein the task characteristics should be consistent with the features of the reality or real life situations in which the target language is used that enables them to grasp and access the task easily.
Again, I will be discussing the non-triviality. So when we talk about non-triviality, it involves the most important, the important, which is non-triviality. The task must be meaningfully generated by the student's special purpose. The tasks that were integrated to the students must be relevant and meaningful to the specific purpose. For instance, you are making a task to your students regarding in their field which they are taking an HRM. So the task that was integrated to them is to cook for a food that is related to a Filipino cuisine. By that, it is the task that you provided to them is very relevant and it is very related to their field of education, their specific purpose. So with that, it includes the importance and all regarding of that specific field of yours as a learners.
So in this method, the means of authenticity requires realistic tasks or activities that will practice students' skills on specific or target language. Authenticity implies learners to use the language that will serve its particular purpose. Now, for example, if the students were under the different courses, or to be specific in medical, the language that will be used should be associated with the medical terms. No? So this can be applied to other fields such as business, engineering, and etc. So in short, the authenticity principle tells that the English language or the term which is to be learned by the students should be aligned to the purpose that they will be taking.
So the last four key methodological principle is tolerance of error. Tolerance of error. It is okay to tolerate that errors as long as it is delivered well or the receiver did understand what you are trying to say. So for example, in the field of medical and HRM, in these two fields they have jargons that they have own meaning or definition that mostly medical or HRM only knows. Um, the the medical student and HRM student having a conversation. In this conversation, the medical student use terminology while they are talking, and mostly that terminologies the medical field only knows or they have definition. But the HRM student did understand the conversation even he or she is not in that field. So that is the tolerance of error.
We have to remember that in teaching ESP to the students, there is also testing and evaluation that is involved in the process. Examples of those testing are performance-based testing, IELTS or International English Language Testing System, and TEP or Test in English for Educational Purposes. Let us explain each of them. Performance-based testing measures students' ability to apply the skills and knowledge learned from a unit or units of study. In ESP, performance-based testing can be done through real-life assessments of using and applying the English concepts depending on their field or purpose. Meanwhile, IELTS is an international standardized test of English language proficiency for non-native English language speakers, and TEP is a test of proficiency in English for academic purposes or AEP that is intended to be taken by students whose first language is not English. Lastly, as CSP class involves testing and evaluation, it also involves scoring that is assigning points to different levels of student performance. It has two types, namely holistic and analytic scoring. Analytic rubrics identify and assess components of a finished product, while holistic rubrics assess student work as a whole.
So, in the topic wrap up for the analytic scoring, it is a method of how the teachers will evaluate the learner's works or performance. So, in this way, scoring is presented. It assesses each criteria by individual scoring. So, meaning to say, the purpose of analytic scoring from the word itself, analytic, it means it was the performance of the student were analyzed with the use of detailed of how the teachers rate the student's score. For example, if the teacher want to evaluate the narrative report in business field using the rubric, then they can easily evaluate precisely the narrative report. So by that, it can identify if the learners has strength and weakness in a particular area of components. And for the next one, here are the four key of principles and methodologies. So first one is the tolerance of error. So when we talk about tolerance of error, it is okay to tolerate the errors as long as it is delivered well or the receiver did understand what you are trying to say. So for instance, like a student was using was in his or her field, but they used in a communication like using of terminologies that is not correctly pronounced or correctly well delivered. It's okay as long as the communication is not segue, and by that it's okay, it's tolerated. And for the non-triviality, is that this presented the task must be meaningfully generated by the student's special purpose. So it is it is important, meaning to say. So the tasks that were integrated to the student must be relevant and meaningful to the specific purpose. And for the reality control task, difficulty is controlled by using simplification. So meaning to say that our tasks should be aligned to the level of the learners and the subject area. So when we talk about another, for the fourth principles and methodologies, which is the authentic. So the authenticity requires realistic tasks or activities that will practice students' skill on specific or target language. Or there are a lot of authentic materials that were implied, and then also authenticity implies learners to use the language that will serve as a particular purpose. So that's all for the four key principles and methodologies.
Topic conclusion or conclusion activity. Answer the following questions orally.
For this portion, you will answer the following question orally. So for the first question, it entails making a qualitative assessment of a student's performance. Again, it entails making a qualitative assessment of a student's performance. Yes, the answer is evaluation.
For the question number 2, it assesses students' ability to apply skills and knowledge acquired during a unit or units of study. Okay, so let's reveal the answer. So the answer is performance-based assessment.
Here's the last and fifth question. It explicitly deconstructs an assignment into its constituent skills and provides students with guidelines for what each performance level for each skill looks like. What comes in your mind when you encounter this question, or what idea did you have? The answer is analytic scoring.
So with that, we discussed and are very thankful for listening and cooperating with us. Thank you.